Handheld! Challenge!
Drop the knife, drop the knife!
Drop the knife! Turn up! Hey everybody, Aaron Cowan, Sage Dynamics. In this video, we're going to talk about weapon-mounted lights for handguns. The weapon-mounted light on the handgun allows you to shoot with two hands in a grip that is very similar or almost exactly like the grip that you would use to shoot without the light, such as during daylight or in conditions where you didn't need the light at all. Biggest problem that we have with weapon-mounted lights, or at least the problem that some people see, is the fact that it makes the firearm larger, and as far as holstering and concealing the firearm, it does extend the overall length of the weapon, so it does make it more difficult for some people to conceal. So they carry a handheld, or they don't carry a light at all. And that's really my biggest problem, is if you're going to go outside at any point, if you're going to leave your home, and even in your home, you should have accessible, as often as the firearm, a light source for that firearm. If you're small of stature and frame, or you work in an environment where you can't carry a handgun that has a rail on it, then a handheld light is a necessity. I consider a handheld light a necessity even though I carry a full-size Glock 17 with a weapon-mounted light on it. This is my everyday carry appendix. This is my frame and the way that I dress, and just the I guess you'd say the attire that I'm allowed to wear at work, because I work for myself, does not permit me, or does not, I should say, prevent me from carrying this firearm. Those of you that work in a more corporate environment, a more business casual environment, or maybe you carry on the DL because you're technically not supposed to carry in your workplace or what have you, if you got to carry a 42 or a 43 or a shield or something like that, then I can understand to a certain degree, like at least for in those hours, not being able to carry a handgun that has a weapon-mounted light on it. Outside of that, or outside of just physically not being capable of doing it, you should have a weapon-mounted light on your firearm. Now, before I get into the why you should have a weapon-mounted light, I'm going to get into the why you should definitely have a handheld. I've told people in the past, I've even brought it up in previous videos, the handheld is a necessity, the handheld is a must, the weapon-mounted light is a luxury but highly recommended, and I still really consider that, and it's kind of where I'm going with things. The handheld light should be in your hand at all times in conditions where you might need a light, where you might reasonably need a light, such as it gets dark every single day, parking garages, dimly lit corridors, things of that nature. Reason being is it allows you instant access to data that your eye wouldn't normally have, because if you remember from some videos I've covered in the past, or if you're already familiar with the concept, the human eye is not really good at low light, failing light, or darkness conditions. Even though it is unlikely for you to be accosted, assaulted, or have someone attack you in a completely devoid of light environment, because if they can't see, then how could they see you to attack you, so on and so forth, you can still use the light for control and to gain more data. So the handheld itself can be a deterrent. It can keep us from needing the firearm at all. But in the event that the firearm has to come out, using the handheld in conjunction with a firearm that doesn't have a weapon-mounted light, so I'm using my handheld and I'm using my handgun and I'm shooting my handgun one-handed, that really sucks. The reason being, a lot of people don't spend a lot of time practicing their one-handed shooting techniques, practicing even their one-handed draw technique. The light's already out, or it should be. If I then have to draw a firearm and somehow made it to the flashlight, I'm going to be definitely at a significant disadvantage if I haven't spent a lot of time practicing those techniques as much as I practice the best case scenario techniques. Two-handed shooting is a luxury. One-handed shooting is the basic level of operation that you should be proficient at. That being said, I'm a pretty decent one-handed shooter, and I still cannot run the gun as fast one-handed as I can two-handed, because I just don't have the same ability to support recoil as I do with two hands. So that's always going to be an issue, and that's one of my biggest issues for if you can support a weapon-mounted light, you need to have one, because it's going to give me the ability to shoot with two hands. It's also going to give me the ability to not worry about independently manipulating the light and a firearm, because the handheld light, in conjunction with a firearm, that's two potential directions that I could be pointing both of them at the same time. And granted, yeah, I'm going to be getting light, but if my hot spot drifts off exactly what I want to shoot at, I'm not maximizing the use of the light. With a handgun, I'm not going, or I should say with a weapon-mounted light on a handgun, I'm not going to have that same problem. So, getting specifically into what I'm talking about, there are a bunch of different handheld light techniques out there for using the light with the gun. One of the most common one you've probably seen is the FBI or the Harries. The problem with those two techniques is neither of them actually helps you support the gun. Think about it. shooting one-handed, shooting one-handed. Now I can rest this arm on this hand a little bit, but it's not actually helping me grip the firearm. So at the very least, all it's doing, I should say at the very most, all it's doing is help mitigate recoil after it occurs. So as the gun fires, this hand can help me stabilize the arm faster. So that's better than nothing. But if you've ever used Harries for any significant amount of time, you know it introduces a lot of asymmetrical stress into the body. And it also makes traversing, even bending the knees, more difficult than if I had a weapon-mounted light and I was using a proper two-handed grip. So all things considered, I want to put two hands on the gun if I can. And this is also something I've talked about in previous videos, but transitioning from a handheld to a weapon-mounted light. I like the Theorem switchback. I think everybody should have one. I think it's a great tool. It does allow you to actually get a better two-handed grip on the firearm. In fact, I've done a video about it, so I'm not going to talk about it too much in this one. But I still carry a weapon-mounted light because I believe that if it comes time to use the firearm, I want a weapon-mounted light no matter how cool my handheld can be. At that point, my switchback just becomes a retention device, so I can keep my handheld light until such time that I'm able to secure it, or maybe the situation has concluded itself and I don't have to really worry about it. Once it's time to use the weapon-mounted light, I want to activate it in a way that's going to maximize my ability to remove my threat's visual horizon, give myself data, and shoot accurately. With the light on, the firearm, I don't have to concern myself with controlling two devices independent of each other. I'm able to just work the gun itself. Wherever I point, the muzzle of the firearm is where my light is going to go. That's extremely beneficial, especially for people who don't spend a lot of time or not able to practice a lot of low light shooting. Working those two devices independently of each other, no matter what grip you use, complicates things. Another thing it does is it allows me to keep the light right underneath the firearm. So anytime I'm maneuvering the handgun, the light stays with it no matter what. So if I'm maneuvering cover, left side exposure, right side exposure, I don't have to worry about switching grips time like that. Fixing malfunctions, reloading the gun, all of these things become so much simpler in the fact that I don't have to also maintain control of another device in my hand. Yes, there are plenty of techniques out there for reloading with a flashlight in your hand, but it's so much easier to do it without it. So just to give you a little bit of anecdotal evidence, I'm going to show you a low light group with the weapon mounted light and a low light group with a handheld light. This is me and a fellow officer of mine, both shooting at the same distance, same general target, trying to maintain a maximum cadence. So here's two groups with the handheld light. Obviously not bad based on distance and cadence. Consider practice and subjectivity as part of that. So the more time you spend shooting one-handed, generally speaking, if you're doing things right, the better you're going to be at it. If you don't shoot that well, that fast, one-handed, it's something you maybe need to consider, which is the whole point of the video. Now let's take a look at the group and the cadence using a weapon-mounted light. Again, completely subjective because this is my ability and Matt's ability. So it's not reflective of the shooting population as a whole. But this is something that you can check on your own if you haven't done it before. Even if you don't have the ability to shoot in low light conditions, you don't have a range where you can shoot at night, you can go to an indoor stall and manipulate the handheld light. Don't cheat yourself. Make sure you're keeping that hot spot on the target while you shoot. And then you can also use your weapon mounted light and see the remarkable difference at different distances. Most likely to least likely, you're probably going to have to defend yourself closer than you are further away. The further away is still possible, but it's not as probable. We want to have our skill set extend as far out as possible just in case, because statistics are really nice except when they happen to you. That aberration chance, or I should say the aberration of the chance, or where you can have to defend yourself at 25 meters doesn't comfort you when we say, well, I thought it was more likely for me to defend myself at 3. So that's why we want to have our skill set extend that far out. But Again, most likely to least likely. Where are you going to use that weapon light control? Where are you going to use that handheld light control? Be realistic with yourself. Check your skills. There's just no way, even with a lot of really solid practice using a handheld light, that you're going to be able to develop the same speed and the same accuracy together as you're going to be able to get from a weapon-mounted light. I'm not going to get specifically into weapon-mounted light techniques in this video because that wasn't the purpose of it. The purpose of this video is to kind of give you an idea of my own personal philosophy of why I strongly believe that if you can, then you should have a weapon-mounted light on your handgun. And when I say you can, I'm not talking about comfortability factor. I'm talking about physically capable of carrying and concealing. If you work in an environment, like I said, where you can't carry your normal compact size or full-size handgun, then that's just something that you have to deal with, and that handheld light is going to be your go-to. But in any situation, any condition where you're able to carry a firearm that has a weapon-mounted light attached to it, you definitely should do that. I guess the argument is obviously it's going to come up. Well, you know, how often am I going to need a weapon-mounted light? Well, how often are you going to need your firearm? And of course the other argument is, well, they shoot at the light. No, they shoot at what they can see. You control what that is. Proper use of light in conditions where light is beneficial will remove your bad guy's ability to see you. If it was daytime like it is right now, he's just going to shoot at you. At night, he may shoot at the light if you allow him to. So which one's actually beneficial? I would rather remove all physical data from the equation and only give him a light to shoot at than give him my person to shoot at. Because all things considered, he's probably going to be able to hit a full in-view, well-lit person more so than he is a small disc of light or anything around it. If you have been to a low light techniques course and they've shown you what the bad guy's perspective is, I think you probably know that it's actually not as simple as some people make it out to be. If the light is properly employed, the bad guy doesn't actually get to see like this cute little disc of light. What he sees is the whole world is fucking white, because he's not getting any visual input, because you're overcharging his eyes with high lumens, which is why we want all the lumens. The brighter the light, the greater the distance I'm able to control someone with if I'm employing the light properly. Weapon-mounted light removes one more failure point, or one more potential failure point from the equation when it comes to using the handgun. Because the question is going to come up, I'll go ahead and address it here. I use Surefire. I'm a big U-boat fan. This is the new A model 600 lumens. There are other great lights out there, don't get me wrong, but for me, Surefire or nothing, which means Surefire. The stream lights are great. I just don't like the rocker activation on them. I'm not a fan of their rocker switch. That's probably the only reason why I don't really consider Streamlight, even though Streamlight does offer a light that has more lumens than the Surefire, because the lumens do me no good if I can't activate the light the way that I need to activate it in order to control the firearm. As far as Enforce goes, the APL, I hate them. I'll just go ahead and say that right now. I've just not had good luck with them. I've not seen really good performance with them in classes. They have a really high lumen for what they are. They say whatever the lumen number is, but their candela, the amount of intensity that you get in your hotspot, just isn't there compared to some of the other lights. So hopefully future generations of the APL are gonna get better. I haven't spent enough time with them to say I hate or like the switches. I don't really have any comment on that as far as the APL goes, but as far as their light goes, just seeing them in classes, I have not been impressed. So as far as lights, my recommendations on lights go, it's going to be Streamlight or it's going to be Surefire. My personal feeling is Surefire, but get out there if you don't have a weapon-mounted light and check them both out and see which one's going to work for you. Obviously, the Streamlight is going to be less expensive, but make sure that that rocker switch is going to work for the firearm that you're using, the holster you're going to carry, the method in which you carry in, and the way that you're going to activate the light on the gun, and the way that your grip's going to work. In a future video, I'm going to cover activation and specific techniques for the weapon-mounted light. But I wanted to put this video out just because I get so many questions about weapon-mounted lights that I felt like I should address it in a video. A handheld is mandatory. You need to have that handheld light. A weapon-mounted light is strongly encouraged, and I'm getting to the point where I'm kind of like, yeah, that's mandatory too, unless you have a verifiable reason for just not carrying one. And of course, there's those people I'm just not going to reach. There's those people that like they're self-defense minded, but they're kind of pedestrian about it. They're like, yeah, I carry one magazine, 7 rounds. That's good enough. And that presupposes that they know the kind of situation that they're going to find themselves in. And I hope it is enough for them, and I hope they never have to use their firearm. But I am going to factor in on the stakes, not the odds. So for me, a weapon-mounted light is going to be a mandatory device in every situation that I'm able to carry one. I'm Aaron Cowan with Sage Dynamics. Train accordingly.